minutes?
Approximately 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, India Academic Freedom Network and Nandini for inviting me. I was telling her that how do I fit in this panel because I'm not an academic nor a scientist. But she requested that since I've been writing on science for a long time, I could bring some of those ideas and perspectives. And a lot has been said, and I'm not going to repeat. All those issues do apply to scientific institutions, but I'll try and give you a broader picture. And I'll spend a couple of minutes on the historical background of autonomy in scientific institutions, since two prominent historians are sitting. Then I'll tell you the situation today and the implications of it. So these three parts I'm going to cover. As you know, when we talk about scientific institutions, we have a large ecosystem. There are scientific departments, 7, 8 of them, which are very unique. I mean, no country of this size and this kind of economy had so many scientific departments. So we have an unusually large scientific infrastructure, so to say, starting from atomic energy, space, to earth sciences, to ocean development and all that. So this is a big infrastructure, all state-funded. And then we have scientific institutions working under these scientific departments. There are research councils which fund research across universities and other institutions. And then there are scientific institutions working under these councils and the scientific departments, which also have a dual role in the sense of teaching and research. So there are common issues, there are different issues. So that's the large picture which we are dealing with. And to talk about autonomy, why it is central to scientific institutions, it was realized right at the beginning. If you see, two major departments of Government of India are not situated in Delhi. One is atomic energy and another is space. And Baba had made it clear that, he didn't want to be entangled in two reasons he gave. It's all in his work, that he did not want it to be entangled in, pressures of bureaucracy. Other is kind of an insulation from, the day-to-day politics. Although the political power and the mentorship came from Nehru, but he didn't want to be bogged down by the political interference. So when this model was set up, Department of Atomic Energy came up in Bombay, and it's still there as a Government of India department. So when the Department of Space was being created in the 70s, early 70s, it was part of Department of Atomic Energy. So Satish Dhawan was offered to become the chairman of ISRO, the first chairman. So he made two conditions that, I will join only if it is located not in Delhi but in Bangalore, and I will continue to teach at Indian Institute of Science where he was the director. And both the conditions were accepted by the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and that's how Department of Space remains in, Bangalore. So the idea was, the whole philosophy behind it, that scientific work needs certain kind of autonomy and freedom from interference. And of course you need funding from the government, but that doesn't mean that there is an interference from the government and the political leadership all the time. So that's the political, that's the broader historical background with which that we must keep in mind. But what is happening today? I will not go through the entire history. We have gone through several epochs and new departments and changes and all that. What's happening is today, in the past 15 to 20 years, I would say, there's an over-centralization of decision-making and policy-making in all the scientific departments. So the autonomy has been given up either under political pressure or with the kind of people who have been appointed to run these scientific departments. So autonomy, and although today Department of Space and DOE are not located in Delhi, but they are under the same kind of political, they are subjected to the same parameters as other departments which are located in Delhi. So there is an erosion of autonomy in all the scientific departments, and the reason being that there is all the decision making has been centralized. If you look at how the Department of Space used to work, Or there was a space commission. See, these are all nuanced ways of functioning. There's a policy making body, there's a government department, and there is ISRO which implements. So there were three layers. The department, the space commission decides, lays down the policy, and Department of Space is the government body which funds, and ISRO runs the day-to-day functioning. But all those lines have been blurred. Same thing with the Atomic Energy Commission. So over a period of time, this has happened. So the decision making has been centralized, and now it's all major decisions are taken in Delhi. I can give you a number of examples of that. Then wherever there was a chance of some kind of flow of ideas from outside government departments. We had the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet for a number of years. Then we used to have SAC PM, Scientific Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister. Then we still have the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister. So to the government. So the idea was that these bodies act as some kind of think tanks outside the government. They lay down a broader policy, kind of thing. But these offices have also been downgraded. The current PSA, the Principal Scientific Advisor, when Kalam was made PSA in the 90s, he was given the cabinet rank. So he had a kind of a distance, but he had the same power as a cabinet minister. So there was a kind of a standing the PSA's office had. But what has happened later on is now it is the PSA is the level of a secretary. So he's like any other government department. If there are 7 secretaries sitting, he's the 8th one. So that role of PSA, although PSA exists as an office separately, but it has no power. It can't tell government, give the real advice. So that's how the institutional level, the autonomy and the power-making structures have been changed to make them, subservient to the one, way to the government. Then how there's the erosion of autonomy at the institution level. It's been mentioned that it's through the appointments, right? From the director generals to these research councils to directors of all the research institutions, IITs, triple IITs, ICERs. There is dozens of such departments. I don't know how many of you have heard something called Vibha. It's not a person, it's the Vigyan Bharati. So there is a revolving door between government, these top positions in Vigyan Bharati. The current president of Indian National Science Academy is also the president of Vibha, which is the science wing of RSS. Okay. So they are sitting, the Vibha representatives sit on all the selection committees. So as a result, most of the directors who are appointed to the institutions are either coming from that stock or they get co-opted into that because they have to save their positions. IIT Kanpur director is the Prant Pramukh of Vibha in UP. So it's happening at a mass level. So that's how the institution levels have been eroded. And there are a number of how Vibha is participating. It is not just a backdoor kind of a thing. There are MOUs signed with scientific departments. Vibha has an MOU with Department of Space to run their outreach. It's called Space on Wheels. So, and a lot of money is flowing into that. Crores and crores of rupees from the government departments are flowing to this particular organization. On one hand, this is happening. On the other hand, the institutions which are supposed to be engaging in, giving new ideas, science communications, spreading ideas of scientific tempers have been closed down. Vigyan Prasar, TIFAC, NISTATS, a number of organizations have been closed down, formally closed down, shut down. So what is happening is what is the net outcome of this centralization of decision making, invasion by this organization called Vibha, and political interference, is the rise of pseudoscience. It is no more one off statement of Pushpak Viman and Ganesha having the plastic surgery. Pseudoscience has been mainstreamed into research programs. Somebody mentioned Viksit Bharat. If you want to get a research grant, you need to have something herbal, IKS, Indian knowledge system. These are the keywords. You're going to get money. So people are playing into that. So research papers are being published in fake journals. Research projects are being, any number of examples I can give about cow cuddling, IIT Mandi running this course on extra whatever, reincarnation, out-of-world, existence and things like that. Several IIT directors have made statements which are, simply have nothing to do with science or technology. So there are any number of examples. Recently we had this Mahakal conference where they proposed this Mahakal standard time. A couple of years back there was a
topic of Capricorn.
Yes.
Equator.
So that should be the new Greenwich. Couple of years back there was the Panch Mahabhut Sammelan in Dehradun, which had Jal, Vayu, Antariksh, sab usme, so that they can get funding from Ministry of Earth Sciences, Ministry of Department of Science, all that. So there was a massive, these are all international conferences. There are people who will come. But for genuine conferences, the visas are not being given, permissions have to be taken, all those apply. But the kind of things which are getting promoted are these. And Gaumutra and all that is Panchagavya, DST is funding programs on that. IIT, I'll take 2 more minutes. IIT Kharagpur has a massive program on Indian knowledge system. This is such a beautiful umbrella, no? Under that you can bring in everything. From reincarnation to cow dung to cow cuddling, everything comes under IKS. So there's a international seminar on Tantra Vigyan at IIT Guwahati under IKS. And these are all government funded, state funded, research programs, and people are doing PhDs. If you look at the IKS, websites of all these IITs, you'll find number of people doing PhDs on these subjects. So that's what is happening. Promotion. I mean, I'm not even talking of Ayush. That's another big, thing. Yeah. So we have traveled a long way from Pushpak Viman, from being a fringe statement to mainstreaming of pseudoscience. That's the real worry of erosion of autonomy in the scientific institutions. And of course, there's a big shift towards funding private sector. The Anusandhan National Research Fund, which is a big example of centralization, is presided over by the Prime Minister. That's an umbrella body to fund all research. I mean, they also want to include social sciences into that. So slowly all the funding will be funneled through that. So it was given 50,000 crore over 5 years. Again, that's a big statement. Money doesn't come, all that is there. Over performance and under delivery is the norm now. 50,000 crore was promised on paper, a few thousand crore was given. So that's the centralized body. But then they created another body which is called RDI, Research Development Innovation Fund, which is solely to fund money projects in the private sector. And that has been given 1 lakh crore. And 20,000 actually flowed into the kitty first year. ANRF took 5 years to come to to become functional, but RDI became functional right away, and 20,000 crore it got in the first year as promised. So this is a shift. And the net result of all this is that we are sliding back in science and technology. We are missing deadlines, we are missing, for example, the Prime Minister in 2018, I covered that event at a WHO conference in Delhi. He announced that India is going to end TB by 2025. I had 5 years ahead of the WHO goal of 2030. We are in 2025, 2026, and no questions asked, TB is still there as a major public health problem. 2017, we announced that this human space flight will take place by 2022. We are in 2026, and flight is still 3 years away. So it's so the whole thing is that let us project something, and then nobody is going to ask you if you do not deliver. So and it is no more, as you mentioned about the scientific department, it's not a question of just the scientific departments. This attack on scientific temper, scientific thinking, the rational way of looking at things, that is the real problem, because the pseudoscience stream is becoming so strong, and that's the real danger of loss of autonomy in the institution. It's not just individual research project, it's a question which the society has to address as a whole. Thank you.